Commander Jake Miller walked across the metal floor of his ship and looked out the big window at space. 3 strange ships moved slowly toward them, their silver hulls shining in the light from nearby stars. These were not human ships. After 3 months of careful talking through radio signals, the aliens had finally agreed to meet face-to-face. Jake had been waiting for this moment his whole life. He was 42 years old and had spent 20 years flying through space, but he had never seen anything like this. The alien ships looked smooth and clean, like they had never been in a fight or seen any trouble. They moved in perfect lines. Not like human ships that often had to dodge space rocks or fix broken parts. Dr. Lisa Harper stood next to him, holding a thick book full of notes about the aliens. She was the smartest person Jake knew when it came to studying new life forms. Her brown hair was tied back and she wore the blue uniform that all science officers used. She had been studying the alien signals for months, trying to understand how they lived and what they wanted. The aliens called themselves Zephyrians. From what Lisa could tell, they breathed air like humans did, but their homeworld sounded very different from Earth. They talked about perfect weather and safe ground that never moved. Jake thought that sounded boring, but he kept that opinion to himself. Captain Alex Stone walked onto the bridge, his boots making loud sounds on the metal floor. Alex was Jake's best friend and the person in charge of keeping everyone safe during this meeting. He was tall and strong, with gray hair that showed he had seen many battles. Alex looked at the alien ships and shook his head. "Those ships look like they never had to fight for anything," Alex said. "No armor, no battle scars, no extra guns. What kind of life do these aliens live?" Jake was wondering the same thing. Human ships were built tough because space was dangerous. Rocks flew around that could punch holes in metal. Solar storms could fry computer systems. Pirates attacked trade ships. But these alien ships looked like they had never faced any of these problems. Lieutenant Ben Carter sat at the computer station, watching numbers scroll across his screen. Ben was young but very smart about rocks and planets. He had grown up in the mountains of Colorado and knew all about dangerous places. Ben looked up from his computer and spoke. "Commander, these aliens are asking about our safety equipment again. They want to know if we have emergency medical gear and backup life support. They seem really worried about something." Lisa looked at her notes again. "They keep asking about our homeworld, too. They use words like survival and endurance when they talk about humans. I think they believe Earth is more dangerous than it really is." The radio crackled and an alien voice came through the speakers. The voice was high and soft, like a child speaking. Jake had heard this voice many times over the past 3 months, but it still sounded strange. The alien used a machine to change his words into English. "Human vessel, we are ready to dock with your ship. Please confirm that your atmosphere is safe for our biology. We have brought protective suits in case your environment is too harsh for our people." Jake looked at Alex, and they both smiled. Too harsh. The ship had normal Earth air, normal Earth temperature, and normal Earth gravity. What could be harsh about that? "Zephyrian vessel, our environment is standard. You should be comfortable here," Jake replied into the radio. There was a long pause before the alien spoke again. "We understand. We will dock now. Please have medical assistance ready in case we experience difficulties." Medical assistance? Jake was getting more confused by the minute. These aliens acted like visiting a human ship was extremely dangerous. He had visited hundreds of ships and space stations in his career, and the only time anyone needed medical help was during actual emergencies. The docking process took much longer than normal. Human ships could connect in less than 10 minutes, but the alien ship moved very slowly and carefully. Every few minutes they stopped and checked their systems. They asked permission for each small movement. Jake started to wonder if these aliens had ever docked with another ship before. Finally, the alien ship connected with a soft bump. Jake, Alex, and Lisa walked to the docking bay to meet their visitors. Communications Officer Kate Wilson came with them to help with the translation. Equipment. Kate was smart and quick. and she could work the computer systems better than anyone else on the ship. The docking bay was a large metal room with thick doors on both ends. One door led to their ship, and the other door led to the alien ship. Between the two doors was a small area where air from both ships could mix safely. Jake had done this process hundreds of times with other human ships. The alien door opened very slowly. Jake could hear strange sounds from the other side, like whispers and soft beeping noises. Then 3 figures stepped through the doorway, and Jake got his first good look at real aliens. The Zephyrians were tall and thin, much thinner than any human. Their skin was pale blue-gray, and their eyes were large and dark. They moved carefully, like they were afraid of falling down or breaking something. All 3 aliens wore what looked like spacesuits, even though the air was perfectly safe for them. The first alien stepped forward and spoke through a small machine attached to his suit. His voice was even softer in person than it had been over the radio. "I am Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrian Council. We are honored to meet with representatives of the human species." The alien paused and looked around the docking bay. "We are impressed by your species' ability to survive in such harsh conditions. Your classification as inhabitants of a Class 12 Deathworld explains much about your remarkable resilience." Jake, Alex, Lisa, and Kate all looked at each other with surprise. A Deathworld? Earth was classified as a Deathworld? Jake had lived on Earth for most of his life, and it seemed like a pretty normal place to him. Sure, there were storms sometimes, and earthquakes happened now and then, but nothing that seemed particularly deadly. Dr. Lisa Harper stepped forward, her curiosity getting the better of her scientific training. "Ambassador Veltar, what exactly makes Earth dangerous in your classification system?" The alien's large eyes seemed to get even larger, and Jake could swear he saw surprise on the creature's strange face. "You do not know? Your own species does not understand the deadly nature of your homeworld?" The room fell silent except for the soft humming of the ship's air systems. Jake realized that this first contact was going to be very different from what anyone had expected. The aliens were not just meeting humans for the first time. They were meeting what they believed to be the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Ambassador Veltar moved his thin hands over a small device, and suddenly the air above his palm filled with pictures made of light. Jake had seen human technology do similar things, but this looked much more advanced. The pictures showed planets and stars with symbols and numbers that meant nothing to humans. "Your world appears here," Veltar said, pointing to one planet in the display. Earth looked normal to Jake, but it was covered with red warning symbols that blinked like danger lights. "In our galactic classification system, worlds are ranked from Class 1 to Class 15 based on their safety for intelligent life." Dr. Lisa Harper leaned forward to get a better look at the display. She pulled out her notebook and started writing down everything she could see. Lisa had always been curious about everything, and this was the most exciting discovery of her career. "What makes a Class 1 world?" Alex asked. Veltar touched his device again, and a new planet appeared in the light display. This world looked completely different from Earth. The surface was smooth and flat, with no mountains or deep valleys. The colors were soft blues and greens, and everything looked peaceful and calm. Class 1 worlds have stable weather that never changes. The temperature stays the same all year long. The ground never moves or shakes. There are no storms, no dangerous animals, and no poisonous plants. Most intelligent species develop on Class 1 or Class 2 worlds. Jake looked at the peaceful planet and tried to imagine living there. It looked incredibly boring to him. No storms meant no exciting weather. No mountains meant no skiing or climbing. No dangerous animals meant no hunting or wildlife to watch, but he kept these thoughts to himself. "What about higher class worlds?" Kate asked. "Class 3 worlds might have small storms or slight temperature changes. Class 5 worlds could have some moving ground or seasonal weather patterns. These are considered challenging for most species." Veltar paused and looked at the humans with what might have been fear. "Class 10 worlds have extreme weather, dangerous geology, and hostile life forms. Most species cannot survive on such worlds." Lieutenant Ben Carter laughed. which made all three aliens step backward in surprise. You mean like earthquakes? Those happen all the time. I grew up in Colorado and we had small earthquakes pretty regularly. No big deal. The silence that followed was so complete that Jake could hear his own heartbeat. The three Zephyrians stared at Ben like he had just said something impossible. Veltar's device started making soft beeping sounds and the alien looked down at it with confusion. You lived through regular seismic events and considered them normal? Veltar's voice was barely a whisper. Sure, Ben said with a shrug. The big earthquake in 2019 knocked some books off my shelf, but that was about it. We just built our houses to handle the shaking. Dr. Harper was writing notes so fast that her pencil was making scratching sounds on the paper. Ambassador, you mentioned Earth is Class 12. What makes it so much more dangerous than Class 10? Veltar looked at his device again, then back at the humans. Jake noticed that the aliens' hands were shaking slightly. Your world has weather systems that can destroy entire regions. Wind speeds that exceed our spacecraft velocity. Temperature variations that would kill most species within minutes. Water that falls from the sky with enough force to cause injury. You mean rain? Kate asked. Rain, yes. But also frozen water that can damage structures and harm organic beings. And the storms that create electrical discharges powerful enough to melt metal. Alex started to understand what was happening. You're talking about lightning and hail. Those are just normal weather events. Normal? Veltar's voice rose higher. Your species considers weather events that can kill to be normal? Lisa looked up from her notes. Ambassador, what kind of weather does your world have? The alien touched his device and a new image appeared. Veltar's homeworld showed gentle clouds that moved slowly across a sky that never seemed to change color. There were no storms, no lightning, no rain, and no snow. The weather patterns looked like they had stayed the same for thousands of years. Our world maintains atmospheric stability. Temperature varies by no more than 2 degrees throughout the entire year. Precipitation occurs in gentle mists that provide exactly the amount of moisture needed for plant life. Wind speeds never exceed safe levels for walking outdoors. Jake tried to imagine living on such a world. No thunderstorms to watch from the porch. No snow to play in during winter. No cool spring rains or warm summer breezes. It sounded like the most boring place in the universe. But what about your oceans? Lisa asked. Oceans? Veltar looked confused. Our world has calm water bodies with no wave action. The water temperature remains constant and the chemistry never changes. Why do you ask? Earth's oceans have waves, tides, storms, and currents. The water is always moving, Lisa explained. The alien device started beeping more rapidly, and Veltar looked at it with growing alarm. Moving water? Your species lives near water that moves without control? We surf on the waves for fun, Ben said helpfully. One of the other aliens made a sound that might have been a gasp. The second alien spoke for the first time, his voice even softer than Veltar. They deliberately place themselves in moving water for recreational purposes? Kate pulled out her own device and showed the aliens some pictures from Earth. She scrolled through images of surfing, swimming, and sailing. The aliens stared at the pictures like they were looking at evidence of insanity. This is considered entertainment on your world? The third alien asked. Oh, that's just basic water sports, Kate said. Wait until you see pictures of mountain climbing, skydiving, or motorcycle racing. Veltar's device was now beeping constantly. The alien looked at the humans with a mixture of awe and terror. Your species seeks out danger for pleasure? Not danger, Alex corrected. Adventure, challenge, fun. But the geological instability alone should make your world uninhabitable, Veltar protested. How do you survive when the ground itself moves? Ben thought about this for a moment. Well, you build your houses to handle it. You learn to recognize the warning signs. And if it's really bad, you move somewhere else for a while. It's just part of life. Dr. Harper was putting together a bigger picture as she listened to the conversation. Ambassador, when your species encounters natural disasters, what do you Do? Natural disasters do not occur on civilized worlds, Valtar replied. When we expand to new planets, we only choose Class 1 or Class 2 worlds that pose no environmental threats. But what if you had to live somewhere more challenging? Jake asked. The alien was quiet for a long moment. Our species would not survive. We require stable, controlled environments to maintain our health and civilization. Jake began to understand why the aliens had been so careful about everything. They were not just meeting humans. They were meeting a species that thrived in conditions that would kill most other intelligent life in the galaxy. The Zephyrians lived in perfect safety, while humans had learned to survive and even enjoy living on a world that was constantly trying to kill them. Ambassador, Lisa said gently, exactly how many intelligent species are there in the galaxy? The Galactic Council represents 47 different species, Valtar replied. And how many of them live on worlds more dangerous than Class 2? Valtar looked at his device, then back at the humans. None, until now. No intelligent species had ever been discovered living on a world more dangerous than Class 4. Your species is the first we have encountered that not only survives on a Class 12 Deathworld, but actually seems to enjoy the experience. The room fell silent again as the implications sank in. Humans were not just another species joining the galactic community. They were something completely new and unprecedented. They were survivors from a world so dangerous that no other intelligent life had ever been found living in similar conditions. Jake looked at his fellow humans and saw the same realization dawning on their faces. Earth was not just their home. Earth was a training ground that had created the toughest species in the known galaxy, and they had never even realized it. Ambassador Veltar looked around the docking bay with nervous movements of his large eyes. We would be honored to observe how your species maintains survival fitness in this environment. Our scientists believe understanding your adaptations could help us learn more about Deathworld survival. Jake thought this was a strange request, but he was happy to show the aliens around the ship. Of course, would you like to see our living areas first? The group moved through the ship's corridors, and Jake noticed that the aliens walked very carefully. They stayed close to the walls and moved slowly, as if they were afraid of falling down. Their breathing seemed quick and shallow, even though the air was perfectly fine for them. They passed the ship's gym, and through the open door they could see Sergeant Amy Ross working out. Amy was running on a machine that moved under her feet, sweat dripping from her face as she maintained a steady pace. She had been running for 30 minutes and showed no signs of getting tired. Veltar stopped walking and stared through the doorway. What is that human doing? Amy's just getting her daily exercise, Alex explained. She runs for an hour every morning to stay in shape. She is fleeing from danger? The second alien asked. No, she's running in place. It's exercise. She does it to stay healthy and strong, Lisa said. The aliens watched Amy with fascination and horror. Her heart rate was elevated. She was breathing hard, and her body was producing sweat to cool itself down. To the Zephyrians, it looked like she was experiencing severe biological distress. Amy noticed the visitors and waved cheerfully. Hi there, you must be our alien friends. She wiped sweat from her forehead with a towel. Sorry, I'm all sweaty, just finishing up my workout. All three aliens stepped backward when they saw the moisture on Amy's skin. Valtar's device started beeping again. She is experiencing fluid loss. Does she require medical assistance? It's just sweat, Amy laughed. My body makes it to keep me cool when I exercise. It's totally normal. Your body produces liquids during stress? The third alien asked in amazement. During exercise, yeah. Also when it's hot outside or when I'm working hard. It's how humans regulate body temperature. Dr. Harper was taking notes again, fascinated by the aliens' reactions. Ambassador, how do your people control body temperature? We maintain perfect thermal equilibrium at all times. Any significant temperature variation would be dangerous for our biology. Fluid loss is a sign of critical system failure. Amy stepped off the running machine and walked over to a set of heavy metal weights. She picked up 2 pieces that weighed 40 pounds each and began lifting them over her head repeatedly. The alien stared in disbelief as she completed 20 repetitions without apparent difficulty. "She is lifting objects many times her body density," Veltar whispered. "How is this possible without mechanical assistance?" "Human muscles are designed to handle heavy loads," Ben explained. "We evolved on a world where you needed to be strong to survive. Lifting heavy things, running long distances, climbing over obstacles, these are all normal human activities." The aliens followed the group to the ship's cafeteria, where Chef Paul Martinez was preparing lunch. Paul was a cheerful man from New Mexico who took pride in making good food for the crew. He looked up from his cooking and smiled at the visitors. "Welcome aboard. You folks hungry?" "I'm making grilled chicken with vegetables today." Paul held up a piece of chicken that was sizzling on a hot metal surface. The smell of cooking meat and spices filled the air. The aliens immediately moved away from the food preparation area. "You are consuming the flesh of another creature?" Veltar asked. "Sure," Paul said. "Chicken is a common food on Earth, very tasty and nutritious." "And you are applying thermal energy to alter its molecular structure?" Paul looked confused by the technical language. "I'm cooking it, yeah. Makes it taste better and kills any germs that might be harmful." Veltar translated this for the other aliens in their own language, and all 3 began making agitated sounds. Dr. Harper listened carefully and thought she could detect fear in their voices. "Ambassador, what do your people eat?" she asked. "We consume nutritional preparations that are created in sterile laboratory conditions. All harmful elements are removed and proper vitamin balance is maintained artificially. The consumption of once living tissue is unknown in civilized society." Paul shrugged and continued cooking. He added black pepper, garlic powder, and paprika to the chicken. The aliens watched in horror as he sprinkled what they considered to be toxic chemicals onto food that humans were going to eat. "Those are chemical compounds," the second alien said. "You are adding chemical compounds to your nutrition." "They're spices," Paul explained. "They make the food taste good. Want to try some?" He held out a small container of black pepper toward the aliens. All 3 immediately backed away as if he was offering them poison. "We cannot consume unknown chemical compounds. They could cause severe biological reactions," Veltar said. Kate laughed. "It's just black pepper. My grandmother puts it on everything." The aliens began talking rapidly among themselves in their own language. Dr. Harper wished she could understand what they were saying, but their voices were getting higher and faster, which seemed to indicate excitement or fear. Ben sat down at one of the tables and began eating a sandwich. The sandwich contained bread, meat, cheese, lettuce, tomatoes, and mustard. The aliens watched him eat with the same fascination they might show for watching someone perform impossible magic tricks. "He is consuming multiple biological substances simultaneously," the third alien observed. "It's just lunch," Ben said between bites. "Ham and cheese sandwich with some vegetables. Pretty normal food." "You regularly consume the flesh products of multiple different creatures in a single meal?" "Well, ham comes from pigs and cheese comes from cow milk, so yeah, I guess so." "Never really thought about it that way." Amy joined them for lunch still, wearing her exercise clothes. She was no longer sweating, but her face was still slightly red from her workout. She grabbed a bottle of water and drank deeply from it. "Feels good to rehydrate after a hard run," she said. "You deliberately reduced your body's fluid levels and now you are restoring them?" Veltar asked. "That's how exercise works. You sweat out water and then you drink more water to replace it. Basic biology." The aliens spent the rest of the meal watching the humans eat with amazement. Paul had prepared what he considered to be a mild, simple meal, but to the Zephyrians it looked like the humans were casually consuming a variety of dangerous substances without any protective equipment or medical supervision. When Ben mentioned that he was from Colorado, the aliens became even more agitated. "Colorado is located in a mountainous region of your planet," Veltar said. "The atmospheric pressure at such elevations would be insufficient for most species." "Yeah, it takes a little getting used to," Ben admitted. When people visit from lower elevations, they sometimes get altitude sickness for a few days until their bodies adjust. No big deal, though. Your body modifies its own biological functions to adapt to hostile environments. Sure, humans are pretty adaptable. We can live in deserts, mountains, cold places, hot places, pretty much anywhere on Earth with the right preparation. Dr. Harper was starting to see a pattern in the aliens' reactions. Everything that humans considered normal daily life appeared to be extremely dangerous from the aliens' perspective. Exercise looked like biological distress. Eating looked like consuming poison. Living at different elevations looked like surviving in hostile environments. "Ambassador," she said, "what does a normal day look like on your world?" Veltar described a life of perfect environmental control. Zephyrians lived in climate-controlled buildings where temperature, humidity, and air pressure never varied. They ate laboratory-prepared nutrients that were identical every day. They moved slowly and carefully to avoid any physical stress on their bodies. They avoided any activity that might cause their heart rate to increase or their body temperature to change. Jake listened to this description and realized that what the aliens called normal life would drive most humans insane with boredom. Humans needed challenge, variety, and physical activity to stay healthy and happy. What the aliens saw as necessary safety precautions, humans would see as a prison dot as the day continued. The cultural gap became more and more obvious. The aliens viewed humans as incredibly dangerous creatures who had somehow survived in conditions that should have killed them. The humans viewed the aliens as extremely fragile beings who seemed afraid of everything that made life interesting. By evening, the aliens were referring to humans in their own language with words that Dr. Harper's translation software suggested meant the ones who dance with death or those who laugh at danger. Ambassador Veltar approached Jake before the aliens returned to their ship. "Commander Miller, we have learned much today. Your species possesses survival capabilities that we did not know were possible. This information will be very important to the Galactic Council." Jake had a feeling that their first contact with aliens was going to lead to much bigger changes than anyone had expected. Humans were not just joining galactic civilization. They were about to become something unique and valuable in a galaxy full of species that had never learned to live with danger. 2 weeks after the Zephyrians returned to their homeworld, the communication systems aboard the UES Horizon began receiving messages from across the galaxy. Jake Miller sat in his captain's chair, listening to the fourth alien transmission of the morning, and shook his head in amazement at how quickly word had spread. The first message had come from the Corellian Trade Federation. Their representative was a tall, lizard-like creature named Kexan who spoke in careful MEA-SURED words through the translation device. "Greetings, humans of Earth. We have received reports of your species' exceptional survival capabilities. The Corellian Trade Federation operates shipping routes through several dangerous regions of space, including systems with unstable stars and planets with hostile environments. We would like to discuss employment opportunities for human security personnel." Dr. Lisa Harper looked up from her analysis of the message. "They want to hire us as guards for dangerous shipping routes. They're offering payment in rare metals and energy crystals." Communications Officer Kate Wilson was busy managing the incoming transmissions. Her console showed 17 different alien species trying to contact them, and more messages were arriving every hour. "Commander, we're getting requests from mining operations on volcanic worlds, exploration teams heading to uncharted systems, and something called the Neutral Zone Patrol that wants human advisors for their frontier stations," Kate reported. Jake was having trouble processing how quickly their situation had changed. 3 weeks ago, humans had been alone in the galaxy. Now they were apparently the most sought-after species for any job that involved danger or difficult conditions. The second major transmission came from the Vorthan Scientific Collective. Dr. Zelnek was a floating, jellyfish-like creature who communicated through color changes on her translucent body. The translation device converted her color patterns into words, but the process was slow and sometimes confusing. Human entities, your biological adaptations are of tremendous scientific interest. We request permission to conduct detailed studies of human physiology, psychology, and survival mechanisms. In exchange, we offer access to our advanced medical technologies and genetic databases. Lieutenant Ben Carter was fascinated by the scientific opportunities. Commander, they have medical technology that could help us understand our own biology better, plus they might be able to help us adapt to even more extreme environments. But the message that really caught everyone's attention came from a species called the Helene. Their representative was a small, bird-like creature named Piptar, who seemed to be constantly nervous about something. Brave humans, our colony on the world of Kelser Prime is experiencing severe difficulties. The planet has frequent ground tremors, dangerous weather patterns, and aggressive native wildlife. Our people are suffering, and many have become ill from the stress of living in such conditions. We desperately need advisors who can teach us how to survive in an unstable environment. Dr. Harper studied the data about Kelser Prime that came with the message. The planet has minor earthquakes, seasonal storms, and some large predatory animals. By human standards, it's probably similar to living in Alaska or northern Canada. But these people are dying from the stress of living there, Alex Stone pointed out. Things that we consider normal are literally killing them. Jake realized that humans were facing a choice that would define their role in galactic civilization. They could help other species survive in conditions that humans found easy to handle, but they would essentially become the galaxy's emergency response team for any situation too. Dangerous for other species. The decision became urgent when they received a distress call from the Miran Republic. The message came through marked with emergency priority codes, and the voice of the Miran leader sounded desperate. Human vessels, we face immediate crisis. Our research station on Moonbase Gamma 7 has lost power during a severe ion storm. The station's life support will fail within 72 hours. The storm makes the environment too dangerous for standard rescue operations. We have 43 researchers trapped on the station. Can you help? Kate ran the numbers on her computer. Commander, we could reach them in 58 hours if we push the engines hard. But according to their data, the ion storm would disable most alien technology. Their rescue ships can't even get close. What about our systems? Jake asked, then pulled up the technical specifications. Our ships are built to handle solar storms and electromagnetic interference. It would be rough, but we could probably make it through. Jake looked at his crew and saw the same determination in their faces that he felt in his heart. This was what humans did. When other people were in danger, humans helped, regardless of the risk to themselves. Kate, send a reply. Tell them we're on our way. The rescue mission to Gamma 7 became the first test of human capabilities in a galactic emergency. The ion storm was powerful enough to shut down Miran technology, but human systems were designed to function in much worse conditions. Jake's ship pushed through electromagnetic fields that would have destroyed most alien vessels when they reached the research station. They found 43 Miran scientists huddled in the emergency shelter, convinced they were going to die. The Miran were plant-like beings who required very specific environmental conditions to survive. The power failure had disrupted their life support systems, and they were slowly suffocating in an atmosphere that was perfectly breathable for humans. Sergeant Amy Ross led the rescue team onto the station. She worked in conditions that the Miran considered lethal, repairing systems with her bare hands while electromagnetic discharges sparked around her. The Miran watched in amazement as humans moved through their crisis environment like it was a normal workday. How are you functioning in these conditions? Asked Dr. Velinari, the senior Miran researcher. The electromagnetic interference should be disrupting your biological systems? It's just like working during a thunderstorm, Amy replied as she reconnected a power cable. You stay alert, wear protective gear, and get the job done. The rescue operation took 18 hours, but all 43 Miran were safely evacuated. The story spread across the galaxy within days, and suddenly humans were not just curiosities with unusual biology. They were heroes who could go places and do things that no other species could manage, more requests started pouring in. The Scian Mining Consortium wanted human supervisors for their operations on worlds with dangerous geology. The Exploration Guild offered partnership agreements for surveying potentially habitable but risky planets. Military organizations wanted to discuss mutual defense treaties, having realized that humans could fight effectively in environments where other species would be helpless. But the most concerning message came from the hegemony, a powerful military alliance that controlled a significant portion of the galaxy. General Dexmore was an intimidating creature that looked like an armored insect with multiple arms and cold, calculating eyes. Humans of Earth, your reputation has reached hegemony space. We are the dominant military force in this galaxy, having conquered 17 different species through superior tactics and overwhelming force. Your claims of superiority through environmental adaptation are interesting but unproven. Perhaps it is time to test your abilities against true warriors instead of rescue operations and civilian emergencies. The message was clearly a challenge, and Jake could see the threat behind the diplomatic language. The hegemony was used to being the strongest force in the galaxy, and they did not like the idea that humans might be tougher than they were. Dr. Harper analyzed the data about the hegemony and found troubling information. Commander, they have conquered every species they've encountered through military force. They take over planets by demonstrating that resistance is futile, then offer the choice between surrender and destruction. How many ships do they have? Alex asked. Conservative estimates suggest over 800 warships, with the ability to build more quickly than any other galactic power. Jake looked at the star charts showing hegemony territory. It was massive, covering dozens of star systems and billions of inhabitants. If the hegemony decided that humans were a threat, the small human fleet would be completely outnumbered. But Jake also knew something that the hegemony probably did not understand. Humans had never backed down from a fight when they believed they were protecting something important. The galaxy was full of species that needed protection from both natural disasters and military conquest. If humans were going to be the galaxy's guardians, they would have to prove they could handle both kinds of threats. Kate received another priority message, this one from a coalition of 12 different species. Commander, they're formally requesting human protection from hegemony expansion. They're offering to share resources and technology in exchange for defense agreements. Jake realized that humanity was being forced into a role they had never asked for. They were becoming the galaxy's protectors, whether they wanted to or not. The choice was no longer whether to get involved in galactic politics, but whether to stand up for the weak against the strong. Open a channel to Earth Command, Jake ordered. We need to let them know that humans are about to become either the galaxy's guardians or its next conquest victims. The hegemony fleet arrived at the neutral zone 6 weeks later, and Jake Miller had never seen so many warships in one place. Through the viewscreen of the UES horizon, he counted over 200 vessels of different sizes and designs, all bristling with weapons that could turn planets into space dust. The alien ships moved in perfect formation, their dark hulls reflecting the light of nearby stars like instruments of death. The human response looked tiny by comparison. Earth Command had sent 12 ships carrying 3,000 people, which was the largest force humanity could assemble on short notice. Jake knew that in a straight military fight, the humans would be completely destroyed within minutes, but Colonel Ryan Foster had a different plan. Ryan was a tough man from Alaska who had spent his military career in the world's most dangerous places. He had survived Arctic warfare, desert combat, jungle operations, and mountain warfare. When General Dexmore demanded a traditional fleet battle, Ryan surprised everyone with his response. We propose a different kind of test, Ryan broadcast to the hegemony fleet. Your warriors against ours, in survival competitions of increasing difficulty. The side that wins the most challenges gets to claim victory. The losing side agrees to respect the winner's position in galactic affairs. There was a long silence before General Dexmore replied. His voice came through the communication system like grinding metal, translated from whatever language the hegemony used. You wish to avoid honorable combat through games and contests? We want to test what really matters, Ryan replied calmly. Anyone can build bigger guns and more ships, but survival skills, adaptability, and toughness cannot be manufactured. Those qualities determine who really deserves to lead. Dr. Lisa Harper was monitoring the communications from multiple alien species who were watching the confrontation. Representatives from dozens of different civilizations had gathered at a safe distance to see what would happen when humans faced the galaxy's most powerful military force. Colonel Foster were receiving messages of support from the Moran Republic, the Corellian Trade Federation, and 17 other species, Kate Wilson reported. They're all hoping we can find a way to stop hegemony expansion without a destructive war. General Vexmore finally agreed to the survival competition, but Jake could hear the contempt in the alien's translated voice. Very well, we will demonstrate that hegemony warriors are superior in all forms of combat, including your primitive survival exercises. When we are finished with this foolishness, you will surrender your ships and your species will serve the hegemony. The first test was set up on a moon orbiting a gas giant. The moon had an atmosphere that most species could breathe, but the weather was harsh and unpredictable. Winds could reach speeds of over 100 miles per hour, and temperature swings of 40 degrees were common. Storms appeared suddenly and could last for days. Hegemony champion Vexkul was their finest warrior, a creature that looked like a cross between a spider and a tank. He wore advanced armor that could regulate temperature, filter air, provide nutrition, and even offer medical treatment if he was injured. His equipment was worth more than most starships. The human representative was Marine Corporal Rita Hayes, a woman from Louisiana who had grown up dealing with hurricanes, floods, and summer heat that could kill unprepared people. Rita wore basic survival gear that any human soldier would consider standard equipment. The test was simple. Both contestants had to survive on the moon for 72 hours while completing a series of navigation and resource-gathering tasks. They would be monitored by sensors, but no outside help was allowed. Jake watched the competition through satellite feeds, and what he saw amazed him. Vexkul struggled constantly with his equipment, trying to maintain optimal environmental conditions. Inside his suit, when a sudden storm hit, he had to take shelter and wait it out. Unable to function in the high winds and temperature drops, Rita simply adapted to the conditions. When the wind picked up, she used it to help her travel in the right direction. When the temperature dropped, she found natural shelter and used survival techniques she had learned as a child. When her water ran low, she collected moisture from the air using methods that humans had developed thousands of years ago. After 72 hours, Rita had completed all her assigned tasks and was actually enjoying the experience. She had found edible plants, constructed effective shelter, and traveled twice as far as the mission required. Vexkul had completed less than half of his tasks, and was exhausted from fighting against the environment instead of working with it. The second test took place on a volcanic world where the ground was hot enough to melt some metals. Sulfur gases filled the air, and the landscape changed constantly as new lava flows created and destroyed terrain. The hegemony sent their environmental specialist, a heavily armored creature that needed full life support to survive the conditions. The human team was led by Sergeant Danny Rodriguez, a man from Hawaii who had grown up near active volcanoes. Danny and his partner moved across the dangerous landscape like they were taking a walk in a park. They completed their mission objectives in half the expected time and actually seemed to be having fun. By the third test, conducted in the frozen methane lakes of an ice world, the pattern was clear to everyone watching. Hegemony warriors were powerful and well-equipped, but they were helpless when their technology failed or when conditions exceeded their equipment's capabilities. Humans adapted to whatever environment they faced and kept functioning even when everything went wrong. The fourth test was underwater, in the crushing depths of an ocean world. The hegemony's aquatic specialist lasted less than 6 hours before his equipment malfunctioned and he had to be rescued. The human team, led by Navy diver Lisa Park, spent 3 days underwater and emerged asking, If they could stay longer to explore more of the ocean, General Lexmore requested a private communication with Colonel Foster before the fifth test. Jake listened as the hegemony leader's voice came through the speakers, sounding very different from his earlier arrogance. Human Commander, we have observed your species' capabilities. We acknowledge that your warriors possess survival skills that exceed our own. We are prepared to discuss terms for coexistence rather than continuing this demonstration. What kind of terms? Ryan asked. The hegemony will cease expansion into territories protected by human forces. In exchange, we request that humans do not interfere with hegemony operations in our current territory. Jake could hear other alien voices in the background, probably hegemony advisors arguing about the decision. It was clear that the military alliance was not used to backing down from anyone. Colonel Foster considered the offer carefully. We accept your proposal with one condition. Any species that requests human protection will receive it, regardless of location. We won't attack hegemony territory, but we will defend anyone who asks for our help. There was another long pause before General Lexmore responded. Agreed. Your species has earned the right to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The formal surrender ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. General Lexmore stood before the human delegation and spoke words that would be remembered for generations. We yield to the humans, not because they possess superior weapons or numbers, but because they possess superior survival instincts. No. Military force in the galaxy can defeat a species that treats deadly environments as training grounds. The hegemony acknowledges human authority in matters of galactic protection and emergency response. The aftermath of the competition changed everything. Within days, humanity received formal requests for protection from 43 different species. Planets that had lived in fear of hegemony conquest suddenly had hope that they could remain free and independent, but the requests went far beyond military protection. Species asked for help with natural disasters, environmental problems, and colonization of dangerous but resource-rich worlds. Humans became the galaxy's first responders for any situation too dangerous for other species to handle. Jake stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon, now the flagship of humanity's galactic protection fleet, and watched another rescue mission launch toward a space station damaged by a solar storm. The crew was heading into radiation levels that would kill most alien species, but they treated it as just another day at work. Dr. Harper joined him at the viewscreen, holding a report about their latest assignments. Commander, we have requests for help with volcanic mining operations, Arctic research stations, and something called weather modification on a planet with permanent hurricanes. Anything we can't handle? Jake asked. Lisa smiled. Not so far. Turns out growing up on a Deathworld is excellent preparation for just about anything the universe can throw at you. Communications Officer Kate Wilson looked up from her station. Commander, we're receiving a message from the Zephyrian Council. Ambassador Veltar wants to discuss establishing a permanent human embassy on their homeworld. What for? Emergency response training. They want to learn basic survival skills in case they ever have to leave their perfect environment. Jake laughed as he thought about gentle Zephyrians trying to learn human-style survival techniques. It would probably be the most challenging thing their species had ever attempted. Tell them we'll send our best instructors.